Alright guys, I'd like you to meet Alvin.
Alvin is a lovely little 1978 Austin Allegro that I've been working on for about a year now, trying to get him back on the road. He's been off the road for a very long time. We're looking at the Hydragas today. This first little bit is something I shot about 6 months prior, just removing the units, but the bulk of the video is going to be reinstalling it all. These seem like one of those Christmas cracker puzzles where you can't get it out of there, there's nothing to undo, but once you release the fluid, free as a breeze. It was all going so tightly. And then you should just be able to go ahead and lift on this now that there's no resistance, like so. I'm just going to slip our 11/16 spanner in and gently lift. Okay, we've got this part removed first just because it gets it out of the way, it gives us a bit more free play. Now we need to get this guy undone, and that huge bolt needs to come all the way through. 15/16 on here with a breaker bar through to the underside of the car seems to be the trick. Now we've got that loosened off, I've just got a spanner on there to hold the nut steady, and we're going to go around the front, we're going to undo the bolt. Oh dear. Now everybody slags off British Leyland. Look at that. 1978, never been replaced, and it pulls out by hand. The temporary solution in place. Road height is not a million miles off of what it's supposed to be. Hi. Hello, welcome back to Skyrocket Automotive. Welcome to the unit. We're in, mostly. Still a few bits to button up at the other end, but we're getting there. This is Alvin. Alvin is one of my first patients. Unfortunately, he is very difficult to get parts for. He's been in the field, I believe the owner said, for about 20-25 years. Amazing little car, I love him to bits. One of the main things that was wrong with Alvin was his Hydragas units was sagging. The trouble with that is, you can't just pump fluid back into them like everybody says that you can. Not possible. All you do in that case is pump a load of fluid in, and eventually it splits the Hydragas unit. Give me a sec. Jesus. Right. Let's bring you in for a look, shall we? Okay, Hydragas is a very, very clever system. So in order to know where we've come from, we need to look at mini suspension. Pretty much the same principle as far as how it's fitted to the vehicle. So what you've got on a mini, you've got a rubber cone, that bit if you will. Imagine that made of rubber, connected to a ball and socket joint, which locks into the suspension arm. As the suspension compresses, you get your spring rate. Hydragas, basically, they really wanted to improve on it, and I feel really sorry for the Allegro because it was full of innovation, and unfortunately, not everybody saw that. Essentially, with Hydragas, what you've got, this is a coilover, for want of a better way of putting it. So you have your bowl at the top, this is full of nitrogen, and this is what does the spring side of things. Down low, you've got the Hydragas fluid, and that acts like the damper. If you imagine this fitted in the vehicle as I just explained with mini suspension, you hit a bump, the fluid compresses, it squashes a diaphragm in here, which obviously there's nitrogen in here that's resisting that, so that's your spring. As it does that, it soaks up the bump and it fires the fluid out of this fitting down a line to the rear suspension on the same side of the vehicle. As you go down the road, front wheels, back wheels, coming down the road, you hit a bump, and as that Hydragas unit is lifted, it pushes fluid to the back, which pumps the suspension up in preparation for the next bump. And likewise, as the front wheel is released and the rear wheel is compressed, the fluid goes back the other way, and it keeps the car as level as possible. So it didn't do much for the handling. They're a little bit boaty on corners because there's no Hydragas action between sides of the vehicle. It's front to back on the Allegro. But for ride comfort, it was fantastic. This little car, which is, what do you say? I would argue it's slightly smaller than a Mark 1 Golf. I might be wrong in that. Obviously, I'm not used to this space, so it's quite disorientating. But basically, it's quite a small car, but it rides like a nice, big, comfortable car. Which I think is why the Van der Pla version was so popular, because it was one of these, but more nicely put together. I'm not going to start going off on British Leyland. This little car sat in a field for 25 years, and it starts, runs and drives. Basically, no rust in it. Had some rot in the rear balance and the front balance, but structurally. So, today's mission, we're going to now refit them. So we're going to be doing it on a jack and axle stands, but that's how you would have done it back in the 70s. So the plan with Allegro is getting mechanically sound, roadworthy, in for an MOT, because that's what we do here at Skyrocket. If a vehicle's been off the road for a long time and it's had a lot of work done to it, it goes for an MOT. If it's exempt, up to you if you want to MOT it after that fact, but I like a second set of eyes on the work I've done. Alvin, this is not nice. Excuse me, I need to get my... Excuse me. Yeah, me and this car have one of these relationships. Alvin. Collapsing the front end of the vehicle in 3, 2, 1. This is a 1970s guy's Impact. Break it loose with a knuckle bar, whiz it off of the speed handle. So even with the speed handle, it's faster, but you can feel if you're having problems with any threads or anything. Okay, so any self-respecting Mini owner / mechanic will recognise this setup immediately. There's your ball and socket joint. We will clean out because it's been sitting with nothing in it, so there's going to be some gack found its way in. A little bit trickier than a Mini. This barb with the red end on it has to go through a very specific hole in the strut tower to be able to connect up the lines. With the exception of that, free as a breeze. So that big hole there is where the top of the strut comes through. That little hole down there is where the valve comes through. And then we bring this pipe over to meet it. So first thing I'm going to do is just get a little spot of grease. I did just clean this out by the way. Jobs, they're good. A little spot of grease around there just to help it out. Right, so big monster bolt. Right, I should say it's been about 6 months since I took this apart. So down there, I will zoom, but you'll see a socket. There's a bolt goes through. It's a monster head on it, I think a 13mm. That arrangement looks crap, but all we wanted to do is keep the head of the bolt still. And I've only done these up finger tight. You will need to put some more effort in if you're taking these off or on for the first time, unfortunately. Oh, Alvin, come on. So for your reference, it's a 15/16. Oh, bunny. Ratchet on that. And a UJ because it's just cramped in there enough. Come on, Alvin. Time's wasting, Chief. 3 more of these, yeah? Yes, it really is as awkward and cat-handed as it looks like it is. Don't know why they couldn't just cut this hole bigger. Right. Big heckin' nut just there. Up to the top. And this bolt is a beast. We don't want to take it all the way up, just enough to let the arm drop. Let's get back underneath. Right, as we can see, the arm is now loose. Obviously try not to strain the brake line. So, now, we can put our first unit in. So, this is fun. This is really fun. You want to get this arm out of the way as much as physically possible. That isn't touching the brake line, I promise. This unit needs to go in. With the valve facing in. Okay. We can just gently hang it up on the valve, just while we, you know what I mean, you need all the hands you can get. Right, that's in. Coming through, look. So now we lift our unit up into position, bring our arm round. Just rough everything in, we don't need to commit right now. We need to connect our line up first. The reason we do that is because we want this unit to sit where it's not straining our hard line. Okay, so sit rep, we have lifted the arm into position, slip the bolt through. So what I did was I sprayed some maintenance spray on that and let it soak for a while so that the union was free turning. Fed that in. As you can see, we're still loosely fitted in there. Now, what I had to do, might be helpful for you guys, is I lifted the arm and I just put some, I would just obviously use anything you need, but just put something between the bump stop and the arm to get a little bit more height out of it, and that just helped me straighten out the union. So theoretically, this can just go back together now. I should say, driver's side, easily the most difficult side. There's a lot of crap in the way. Passenger side is going to be much easier. I'm going to handball it in first, I think. Battery tray and the clutch housing and all sorts of irritating stuffs. I have this ratchet. This is really handy. I was given it, not trying to get you guys to spend any money, but for stuff like this, it's really handy because for just starting things off, it's got absolutely no grunt to it at all when the time comes for you to tighten things down. But as far as running bolts down in awkward spots, it just makes the whole process a little bit less frustrating. So I always do the most frustrating hard one first, because then everything just gets that a little bit easier. Oh damn, that's annoying. Marvin, can you stay still? You're really distracting me. Right, we don't want to do this arm all the way up yet because the suspension isn't loaded and we don't want to bind up one of the bushes, all right? So we don't need to be going ape shit. Just done up, if that makes sense. All right, so the rear displacers are actually sided and they fit into the vehicle like so. Obviously, the pipe is on a specific side. I'll pop that cap off in a minute, but just to show you what I mean, the pivoting force almost goes back on itself. So as hydrogas fluid flows in, it pushes that rod out, so it has the effect of lifting our Alvin here's bum up. And that part goes through the axle. You can see the knuckle joint there, and then that monster bolt that goes through is what holds everything in place. This is somewhat tricky because what you have to do, slide that out enough to get the unit in, then slide it back in without dropping the entire arm off ideally, because then it just gets tricky. I am going to do my level best to film this for you, but obviously it's not the easiest thing in the world to see. And then we have our spring and our mate here, and that all sort of goes in like that. Theoretically, really simple. That plate effectively leaves this captive. So what I'm doing, I'm just jacking this up to try and get this to line up with the hole. I feel like that might be letting go. It is. Right. Cool, I'll get one of those off, you know, allegrosource.com, where you can just pick up these parts for £3.50 and they're delivered next day. It only takes 2 seconds to get bits for Allegro. Absolute disaster. I finally got to put the place to the test. Don't know better get one. Can't put the car back on its wheel, can't put the hydrogas in. Doesn't matter, because I've got a complete bay. This little can just sit on an axle stand until I find one. Goodbye, Alvin. I'll see you another day. Okay, that took a bit longer than expected. Not the fault of the wonderful chap that I got these from. Love it. I genuinely love it. Rear axle mount rubber. I got 2 because for how rare these are, you would be mental to not buy a pair. Just do them both now. They'll last another, how old's Alvin? Really reasonably priced for how rare these parts are. Genuine, British Leyland, new old stock, off the shelf. These are from, I can tell because they've got the proper sticker on them. These are from 1990. They've got to be some of the last made. £45 a side. Like, that's not unreasonable anyway, but especially considering this chap could have gone and find some other ones. It's just not gonna happen. Also, hopefully, you'll notice that the audio's improved. I finally have microphones. So, fingers crossed, this is gonna all go a little bit better this time. Right, come on Alvin, time's wasting. You're taking ages. Your lovely owners want you back. I want you gone, not because I don't, it's nothing personal, mate, but you've kind of been hanging around a bit. I don't think you need to have been hanging around as long as you have, but it's not been for lack of trying. Jacques de Trollet has been retired temporarily. He has been dismissed from his duties because he nearly killed me the other day. I've got an equally janky 24-year-old Jack, but oh! All right.
Alvin! And Allegros right round the sills. Oh, ye of little faith. Basically, what we need to do is crystal the wheel off. What? There's nothing in the world wrong with that. That was a biblical overreaction, Alvin. Still, this ain't got to get under this in a minute, eh? I'm not keen on this at all. Me seeing the new Ford Capri. What we need to do is undo the big nut at the back. We need to disconnect the rear nut, the innermost nut, and there's a big spacer. Spacer and a nut on the innermost part of the bar. And then we're gonna have to undo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Show you the new part, it's probably a good shout. That guy goes in there like that. British Leyland, the geniuses, they made the same part fit both sides of the vehicle. One of these. Right, I'm not taking these all the way out yet because I don't want this guy dropping out on us. Yep. Yep. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, no autographs. I know, it's Kyle from Skyrocket. He is one of the YouTubers. This will be one of the videos ever put to YouTube. I ain't got time, my knuckles. My chief concern currently is hyper straining that brake line. So while we're doing this, what I'm gonna do, before I completely remove this last one, I am gonna get that jack stand, support this arm in some way so that I don't strain anything, because I've got a horrible hunch, but enough about my posture, that when I undo this mount, this arm's gonna try and fall out. I'm gonna undo these last 2 bolts and I'm gonna grab this mount and slide the pin all the way out, and then we can strip it off the vehicle, and then we can install the Hydragas unit while we slide the pin in with the amount attached. Right, it's gonna go. The rear axle is being secured by the other half, so we just gently slide. Yeah, look, that's not under any tension at all, that brake hose, sorry. Okay. So, there is actually a flat here. Our bar is locating in it, so break it loose. Up, ooh. Now these should still be good. They've only been off once. Common misconception about lock nuts is that they're single use. They're not. See that amount of resistance? If it can bite into the thread like that, it will lock in. Do you know who else does that? Space people. There is a spec for the number of times in definitely space travel, and I believe aviation, with which a locking nut can be reused. And I'll be honest with you, I trust steel locking mechanisms over nylon any day of the week. So you can go as ape shit as you want. I'm telling you, they put rockets on space and in the moon. Again, we will talk all of this when it's in situ. Okay, there's our mount replaced. Locked in, way better. And also, barely any give. Black bit there, we need to locate the knuckle joint in, same as the front basically. That bit is what the bar goes through. The knuckle joint is what goes into the bit at the bottom. Knuckle joint's in. Push, wriggle, fight, wrestle, push, 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 push. Oh, yep, there she goes. And now we need to engage this part with the rear axle. What a lovely bit of kit. Great little car. Good Alvin, well done. That's a very good Alvin. We are beautifully engaged in the knuckle joint. I am not getting underneath the vehicle. I am merely window shopping. I wish this phone had stopped vibrating anytime it gets vaguely nudged. This line is getting attached. Preload on the Hydragas. This is very important. This is how you basically level the vehicle. This is all done at the rear displacers, and what you do is you get a trolley jack, get it under the brake drum and lift the rear axle to the correct height, and the height is measured from the middle of the wheel arch down to the center of the hub on the brake drum. Once you're happy with the correct height, you then get back underneath, lift the displacer up hard against the reaction rubber, which is what's sitting up under the body, and do the nut up as tight as it needs to be done. At that point then you'll notice that the wheel sits much higher in the arch when the vehicle's jacked up. At that point you can then lower the vehicle down and start pumping up the Hydragas. It's a bingle, according to a good friend of mine. Okay, so we want to screw this on. Oh, Alvin, you have disrespected me for the last time. I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to do that, to be honest with you. It's in a horrible place. I grow weary of this, Alvin. There should be no pressure in that system at all currently. There we go. Phenomenal. 320, 40, 60, 80, 400. Let's go that second dash just there. Oh, look. Oh, look at you. Don't worry about that. We had a slight incident with a Schrader valve. I'm rectifying it as we speak. Look. Feels just right. Not too saggy, not too firm. That is how I'd expect Hydragas to feel. Just the other side to do now. I'm not going to make you watch that twice. Don't worry. Right. Not much left to do on him now. A little bit of brake work. There's something still not quite right there. Tune up, MOT, and then he gets to go home. And we may not cross paths again, and that actually makes me a little bit sad. I really like this little car. I hope he comes back one day for a service, hopefully not on the back of a flatbed. So, a quick PSA, and then I'll let you go. And please do hear me out. This is not a lecture, just a thought. I hope this video has helped somebody save an Allegro, or a Princess, or anything from that period of time with the British Leyland roundel on it, okay? Because everybody is so horrible about these vehicles. And I'll be honest with you, I've never understood why. They're badly made, are they? Park this next to a Mark 1 Fiesta, and you tell me, or an Escort, whatever you want to pick, you sit in one of these and then sit in a Fiesta, and think for yourself. Don't listen to the bias that's in the media. Don't listen to the nasty Top Gear articles. Sit in one of these, sit in a Fiesta. Are they really that much more poorly made than the Fiesta? I would argue they're both appropriately well made for their time and price point. They are sufficient. That's all the Fiesta was meant to be. That's all the Allegro was meant to be. How much can we sell this car for and make a profit? It's the 1970s. That plus that equals this. They're no more poorly made than a Ford or a Vauxhall. Vauxhalls are buzz boxes from the 70s. I love them to bits. But you can't look me in the eye and tell me a Vauxhall is any better made than one of these. If you've actually driven or sat in either, or both preferably. Mechanically, this car is a Mini. It's a A-series with the gearbox in the sump. You can still get clutches, any engine parts you need, gearbox bits, and that keeps you moving down the road. Yeah, okay. I'll give you that the Allegro specific parts are tricky to get hold of. Fair enough. That's because there are none left. If there was more demand for them, i.e. more people were saving them, the parts would come back. You mean to tell me that anybody intended on doing parts for the Scirocco? It's only because people saved so many of them. Say they're a relatively rare car. So if I'm saying that about this, I'm telling you, if you see one of these rotting away outside a bungalow somewhere, please give it a chance. You won't be disappointed. All the stuff that should scare the shit out of you about these cars, there is part support for. There is a company. Thank you very much, Ian and Dawn. There is a company now that will refurbish your Hydragas units, and they come with a warranty. You can buy the pumps, they're 75 quid. The fluid, you can buy from Euro car parts. That's car lube fluid. It's the stuff they used to sell at Euros. And if you can't get it from there, you can get it from Amazon. I've also heard that antifreeze works. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's what I've heard. All in all, what you get when you buy an old British Leyland vehicle, especially from the 70s, because they were really, really trying to pull themselves out of the hole, you get an awful lot of stories. You get troubled innovation. You get, why did they build it like that? But they built it like that because they had no choice. It was either that or don't build the car. But they tried. And I hate seeing people be so horrible about these cars. It's not ugly. I think it's a great looking little car. I think it drives nice. I think it sounds nice. I think it handles fairly well for the Hydragas, as we discussed earlier. But in a straight line, which is where you do most of your driving, bimbling about, lovely. Lovely. The interior fit and finish is good. It doesn't rattle, it doesn't buzz. All the electrics work. Now, a crackhead got involved and ruined the electrics, but I fixed it all. All the electrical stuff works. It had a couple of small faults, which ended up just being one bad earth point. These are all right by me. Give British Leyland cars a chance. Seriously, they're so cheap compared to an equivalent Ford. You'd pay top whack for one of this model on the road. You'd probably pay 2 or 3 grand. What can you buy a Mark 1 Fiesta for nowadays? And they're no better built. Guarantee it, they are no better built and they're no more reliable. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It means the earth to me that you guys watch this channel at all, let alone that as many of you do. If you'd like to see me save a shitbox Scala, I'm in the process of that, haven't forgot. That'll be around here, I think, is the bottom half. That'll be around here. Latest video, it's up here. And subscribe will be somewhere else. I'm not that savvy, to be honest, with YouTube, but thanks for watching. I'll see you again.